Hey guys, Kerry Werner here, checking in after Midsouth, which was my first race of the season. Turned out pretty well for me. I got third, so super fast tactical racing. So I thought I'd walk you guys through it with a little race recap. So first off, here's the machine I used, Kona Libre, kitted out with Shimano GRX and other Shimano parts. I ran a 50-34 chainring with a 32-11 cassette. These new kind of prototype Maxxis tires, it's basically the Speed Terrain, which only previously came in a 33C, but these ones are 40C. So been testing these out and I'm really into them. So was really excited to get to race them. All right, let's jump into the race. So Friday, I was hanging out at the venue, the expo, chatting with people, preaching the good word of bike flights and the gospel of bicycle shipping. So that is actually part of my job with bike flights. Is I'm a racer, but I'm also a bit of a brand ambassador, an event kind of marketing guy. So I'll be at all the Lifetime races, hanging out in the expo. Please stop by and say hi. Nice to meet new people, see new faces. So yeah, swing by, that'd be really cool. So after the venue on Friday, early morning start, 8 a.m. on Saturday. No weather, which was good because the mud at Midsouth can completely stop your wheels from turning through your frame. But we did have a lot of wind. High winds on Saturday morning, and that played a role really early on in the selection. So right off the start, kind of neutral through town, and then John Borselman wasted no time in getting on the front and really stringing things out through the first kind of crosswind section. There was a 10-minute section in there, like right off the start, where it was an average of 370 watts with normalized power at 390. So pretty tough, and that first effort really caught a lot of people off guard, including some of the guys that would eventually be in the lead group towards the end of the race, missed out on that first selection. The selection happened, we were a smaller group, and then it came back together after the creek crossing. A bigger group came, and then once again, crosswind section that separated the group, and this final selection was the one that we would kind of go through the rest of the day with. Early on, a couple people flatted. Pete Stetina flatted, Adam Roberge flatted, and then a little bit later, just before Aid 2, Dylan Johnson flatted, and so did Ryan Standish. So it wasn't overly technical out there, but there were a lot of roads that had fresh gravel, and the fresh gravel being super loose was just turning over really sharp rock that was causing a lot of punctures. That actually happened to me 2 miles before the 50-mile aid, the halfway aid. I got a puncture. I pulled over real quick, hit it with the CO2, saw that it was just a little pinhole, so I didn't need to plug it. Luckily, I just like tilted it over, let my stands do its job, and then I was back on. And I had to push like roughly a 5-minute effort at like 370 watts to catch back up. It was good timing because the lead group, the lead bunch of guys kind of slowed down as they came through the aid as like a bit of a reprieve before heading back into the second half of the course. I will say we were cooking on this first half. We did the whole first 50 miles in like 2 hours and 10 or 15 minutes or something like that. We had a lot of tailwind, and yeah, we were just moving. That would change for the second half. Immediately after leaving Perry, just after I latched back on, we turned into what would be a second half of basically headwind, crosswind the whole way. So we were a bit disorganized right there at the beginning, which was a little nerve-wracking because the chase group was only a minute or so back. I talked to Dylan Johnson after the race, and he said that he could actually see us on some of the longer, straighter sections. So luckily we were only kind of messing around for 20 or 30 minutes, and then we kind of got organized and started doing the pace making, and Pretty boring racing. Everybody was doing their fair share of the work. Nobody was skipping pulls, so we were just clipping off at a pretty good pace. Nobody really tried to get away at this point. Once we got closer to the 89-mile marker, which is where the single track started, there were a few guys that tried to get away and slow roll off the front, but nothing happened, and we all came into the single track together. There was about 8 of us, and I knew that this would be a selection just because of the various kind of skill levels throughout the group. So I made it a point to be towards the front of that group coming into the single track, and I managed to come into the single track in 3rd place. It was Payson, John, me, followed by Nico Roche. So Payson was pushing pace through there and started to gap John. I came around John at one point and bridged the gap to Payson. And so by the time we made it to the end of the 1.5-mile single track section, Payson and I, John had bridged back to the gap, and we came out of it as a group of 3 with about 10 seconds on the rest of the crew. Once Payson and John and I got out of the single track, we just started trading pulls right away. And we weren't really killing it. I think for the next 30 minutes, which is roughly what it took us to get to the finish, it was only a 280 watt average effort, but just because of the crosswind that were still happening and our level of organization, we ended up pulling 2 minutes on the second kind of chase group by the time we came into town. Within the last 2 miles of the race, things really kind of chilled. We were all kind of looking at each other, seeing who was strong and who was going to do something. This is kind of where I messed up my race. Or I guess I messed it up on Friday or the days prior by not pre-riding. So coming into the finish straight, all I really had to go off of was this line on my Wahoo, which was fine. I just lacked kind of some crucial course knowledge. We came into the 600 meter to go mark, and I was leading, which was a mistake. Payson was behind me, maybe 15, 20 feet, kind of lagging off the back, and he wound it up and slingshotted himself into this rise that started at 600 meters. John was keen enough to look back and see that and jumped on Payson's wheel when he came by. I was already on the hill, slowing down, and so lacked the momentum to move forward with those guys meant that I had to put even more effort in to get up to speed, and I just didn't have it. So those guys came around me, and I tried to jump on, but they just kept kind of inching further and further away from me, and kind of that was where I knew I was coming in 3rd place. So Payson ended up holding a really long sprint, which was good for him, and then John was in 2nd, and I came across in 3rd. So stoked on, first race of the year, getting on the podium. Not so stoked on my tactics there within the last 600 meters. But sometimes you got to make mistakes to learn from them. So what's next for me? I'm in Tucson doing some training for a couple weeks, and then it's back to the East Coast for the Pisgah mountain bike stage race, which ends the Saturday before Sea Otter, the first round of the Lifetime Grand Prix Series, which I will be doing all of, and that's kind of like the first big goal of the season. So I'm going to try to keep these race recaps and vlogs rolling through the Lifetime series, so be sure to subscribe so you can get those notifications when I drop new videos. And yeah, ask me questions, shoot me messages, love to hear what you guys are thinking or what you want to know. And thanks for watching. See you guys at the next one.